There's a puzzle that has haunted both scientists and philosophers for centuries. A question so elusive, so profound, that even the brightest minds of our time struggle to grasp its full implications. It is the enigma of consciousness, the very thing that allows us to think, feel, and experience reality. But what if this mystery is not confined to the brain? What if it extends far beyond, reaching into the very fabric of the cosmos itself? Consciousness remains one of the deepest, most perplexing riddles in science. Despite decades of research, modern neuroscience still cannot explain how subjective experience arises from the activity of neurons. Meanwhile, physicists are grappling with a different enigma: the baffling nature of quantum mechanics, where particles can exist in multiple states at once and influence each other instantaneously across vast distances. These two mysteries, one rooted in the mind, the other in the fundamental laws of reality, seem entirely unrelated at first glance. But what if they are, in fact, two pieces of the same puzzle? The legendary physicist Roger Penrose once made a radical assertion: consciousness involves non-computable quantum processes in the brain. This statement challenges the very foundation of traditional science. If he is correct, then our understanding of the mind and reality itself must undergo a fundamental transformation. The implications are staggering. It would mean that consciousness is not just a byproduct of biological activity, but something deeply woven into the structure of the universe. But how could this be possible? Could the human mind, in some way, be quantum entangled with the cosmos? The idea may sound like science fiction, yet leading scientists have begun to seriously explore this possibility. Some believe that quantum mechanics, the strange and counterintuitive world of subatomic particles, may hold the key to unlocking the true nature of human consciousness. The next question then becomes inevitable. If quantum effects play a role in our minds, what does this mean for our understanding of self, reality, and existence itself? Does it imply that our thoughts are not just the result of neural activity but part of a much greater, interconnected reality? If consciousness is entangled with the universe, then are we truly separate beings, or merely fragments of a vast cosmic whole? To answer these questions, we must explore one of the most baffling and controversial phenomena in physics: quantum entanglement. A phenomenon so bizarre that Albert Einstein himself dismissed it as spooky action at a distance. And yet, decades later, it has been conclusively proven to be real. The implications of this discovery challenge everything we think we know about the nature of existence. Albert Einstein was not easily baffled. Yet, when confronted with the strange implications of Albert Einstein was not easily baffled. Yet, when confronted with the strange implications of quantum mechanics, even he resisted. He famously called it spooky action at a distance, a phrase that encapsulated his deep skepticism. For years, he sought to dismantle the idea that two particles, separated by vast distances, could somehow remain mysteriously connected, instantly influencing each other as if they were not truly separate at all. But reality had other plans. Quantum entanglement is no longer theoretical speculation. It is an experimentally verified fact. Scientists have confirmed, beyond any doubt, that when two particles become entangled, their states remain linked no matter how far apart they are. A change in one is mirrored instantly in the other, defying classical notions of space and time. This is not an illusion, nor a trick of measurement. It is the very nature of reality itself. This discovery did not come without resistance. For decades, physicists debated whether hidden variables, unknown forces lurking beneath the surface, could explain these strange behaviors. But in the 1960s, physicist John Bell proposed a testable mathematical theorem, now known as Bell's theorem, which provided a way to determine whether quantum mechanics was incomplete. If hidden variables existed, certain statistical correlations would hold between entangled particles. If they did not, then quantum mechanics would reign supreme. The decisive proof came in a series of groundbreaking experiments. In the 1980s, Alain Aspect and his team in France performed a refined version of Bell's test, demonstrating that entanglement was real and could not be explained by any hidden local variables. Then, in 2022, the Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded to Alain Aspect, John Clauser, and Anton Zeilinger for their pioneering work in confirming quantum entanglement. The results left no room for doubt. Our universe is deeply interconnected in ways that defy classical understanding. But what does this mean? Why does it matter that particles can remain mysteriously linked across space and time? The implications reach far beyond physics. Theoretical physicist David Bohm suggested that this interconnectedness points to a much deeper truth. He once stated, "The entire universe is in some sense a single indivisible unit. If this is correct, then everything matter, energy, and even consciousness itself may be fundamentally woven into a grand, unified whole." The practical applications of quantum entanglement are already transforming our world. In quantum computing, entangled particles enable computations that would be impossible for classical computers. Unlike traditional bits, which exist as either zeros or ones, quantum bits, or qubits, can exist in multiple states simultaneously, exponentially increasing computational power. Google's quantum computer, Sycamore, has already demonstrated calculations that would take classical supercomputers thousands of years to complete. In cryptography, quantum entanglement provides an unbreakable method of secure communication. The principles of quantum key distribution, QKD, allow for encryption that is theoretically immune to hacking. Any attempt to intercept the transmission disrupts the entanglement itself, instantly alerting the sender and receiver. Governments and corporations are already racing to develop this next-generation security technology. Perhaps most astonishingly, quantum teleportation has been successfully demonstrated. While this does not mean beaming people across the galaxy like in science fiction, it does mean that information, rather than physical objects, can be transmitted instantaneously between entangled particles. Researchers in China have even teleported quantum information from Earth to an orbiting satellite, a feat that could revolutionize data transmission. Yet, despite these extraordinary breakthroughs, a deeper question lingers. If particles can be entangled across space, could the same principle apply to human consciousness? Could the mind itself operate on a quantum level, entangled not just with other minds, but with the very fabric of reality? The implications of this possibility are staggering. It would mean that consciousness is not merely confined to the brain but is part of a vast, interconnected field. It could suggest that thoughts, emotions, and even awareness itself are not isolated phenomena but rather expressions of a deeper, quantum reality. To explore this idea, we must now shift from physics to something even more profound: the question of whether our very consciousness emerges from the quantum world itself. Scientists like Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff have proposed a revolutionary theory that could explain the deepest mystery of all: the origin of human consciousness. But if their theory is correct, it challenges everything we assume about the nature of self, reality, and existence itself. Right now, as you listen to these words, billions of microscopic events are unfolding within your brain. Neurons are firing, electrical impulses are traveling, and biochemical reactions are taking place. But beneath all of this, at an even deeper level, something else might be happening. Something that challenges everything we think we know about consciousness. Could your thoughts, your awareness, even your very sense of self, be rooted in the strange world of quantum mechanics? For decades, scientists have struggled to explain how the brain generates consciousness. Traditional neuroscience assumes that awareness emerges from the complex interactions of neurons, but this theory has a problem. It cannot explain how subjective experience arises. Why do we feel emotions? Why do we have self-awareness? No purely physical explanation has ever fully answered this question. This is where quantum mechanics enters the discussion. The idea that consciousness could be a quantum phenomenon was most famously proposed by physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff in what is now known as the orchestrated objective reduction orchestra or theory. Their claim? That within the brain's neurons, tiny structures called microtubules may be functioning as quantum processors. Microtubules are microscopic scaffolding structures that help maintain the shape and function of cells. But Hameroff and Penrose suggest that these structures could also host quantum superpositions, states where particles exist in multiple places at once. When these superpositions collapse, they could give rise to moments of conscious awareness. If true, this would mean that human consciousness is not just the result of classical brain activity, but a phenomenon arising from quantum processes. What makes this idea so revolutionary? First, it suggests that the mind is not merely a byproduct of neural computation but something far more fundamental. Second, it implies that consciousness is tied to the very fabric of the universe itself. If quantum mechanics underpins thought, then our awareness might be entangled with reality in ways we have never imagined. This is not the only quantum-based model of consciousness. Neuroscientist Carl Pribram proposed the holonomic brain theory, suggesting that memory and perception work similarly to a hologram, distributed across the brain rather than stored in isolated neurons. Holography, in turn, has deep connections to quantum mechanics. Some researchers believe that this model explains why memories can be recalled from small fragments of brain tissue, much like a hologram can be reconstructed from a single part of its image. But what about the even stranger aspects of human experience? Some experiments suggest that consciousness itself might not be confined to the brain at all. Parapsychologist Dean Radin has conducted controversial studies on what he calls non-local consciousness, the idea that thoughts, emotions, and even intentions can influence physical reality at a distance. In experiments testing presentiment, the ability to unconsciously react to future events, participants' physiological responses changed before they were exposed to a stimulus. Though debated, these findings raise an unsettling question. Could the mind operate beyond the limits of time and space? If consciousness truly operates on a quantum level, then the implications go beyond science and touch on something far deeper. It would mean that each thought, each moment of awareness, is not just a fleeting event inside your head. It is part of a grand, interconnected system woven into the fabric of reality itself. And if this is true, then we must ask, what does this say about the nature of reality itself? Is the world we perceive truly material, or is it something far stranger? If consciousness is a fundamental aspect of the universe, then everything we assume about existence may need to be reconsidered. To explore this possibility, we must now step beyond the limits of materialist science and into a radical new paradigm, one that suggests that reality itself may be, at its core, a product of mind rather than matter. For centuries, science has been dominated by a single assumption, that reality is purely physical, that everything we see, touch, and experience is nothing more than the result of material processes. Atoms colliding, neurons firing, chemical reactions unfolding. But what if this assumption is wrong? What if the very foundation of existence is not matter, but mind? This is not a new idea. Philosophers and mystics have long argued that consciousness is the fundamental fabric of reality. But now, science itself is beginning to point in the same direction. If quantum mechanics plays a role in the mind, then the materialist worldview, the idea that everything is reducible to physical interactions, begins to collapse. And in its place, a radical new perspective emerges. One that suggests consciousness is not an illusion, but the very thing that creates reality itself. Thomas Nagel, one of the most respected philosophers of the modern era, has argued that the materialist view of consciousness is incomplete. In his book Mind and Cosmos, he challenges the idea that the mind is simply the product of evolution and brain chemistry. He suggests that consciousness is something far deeper, something that cannot be explained by physical laws alone. If he is correct, then our understanding of the universe must be fundamentally restructured. But Nagel is not alone. Bernardo Kastrup, a leading proponent of analytic idealism, goes even further. He argues that consciousness is not merely an emergent property of the brain. It is the very foundation of existence. According to this view, what we perceive as the physical world is not truly material at all. Instead, it is a manifestation of a deeper mental reality. Just as dreams seem solid and real while we are inside them, so too might the universe itself be an expression of a vast, cosmic consciousness. This idea is not as far-fetched as it seems. Quantum physics itself hints at a reality that is shaped by observation. The famous double-slit experiment has shown that particles behave differently depending on whether or not they are being observed. This suggests that consciousness plays a direct role in shaping the nature of reality. If the universe behaves differently when it is being watched, then who or what is doing the watching? Ancient traditions have echoed these ideas for millennia. In Advaita Vedanta, a school of Hindu philosophy, reality is seen as a unified field of consciousness, where the physical world is merely an illusion maya, superimposed upon an underlying awareness. Similarly, Buddhist teachings on non-duality suggest that the separation between self and universe is an illusion. The great philosopher Alan Watts often spoke of this, saying, "You are something the whole universe is doing in the same way that a wave is something the whole ocean is doing." But if this is true, then what does it mean for us? If consciousness is primary, then we are not mere accidents of evolution. We are not isolated beings trapped in separate bodies. Instead, we are part of an interconnected whole, inseparable from the universe itself. This realization changes everything. It suggests that our thoughts, our emotions, even our very sense of self, are not confined to the brain but are part of a vast cosmic intelligence. And if this is true, then what are the limits of human potential? If our minds are not bound by material constraints, then what else might be possible? This brings us to the next great question. If quantum consciousness is real, then how does it shape our abilities, our awareness, and even our future as a species? What hidden powers of the mind have we yet to unlock? To answer this, we must explore the frontiers of human potential, where science meets the unknown, and where consciousness itself may be the key to transcending the limits we once thought were absolute. The moment we accept the possibility that consciousness is more than just a byproduct of the brain, that it might be a fundamental force intertwined with the universe itself, everything changes. If our minds are not mere biological machines but something far greater, then the limits we assume to be real might not exist at all. What if we have been conditioned to believe in barriers that aren't truly there? What if the nature of consciousness allows us to reach beyond what we once thought was possible? Throughout history, there have been accounts of individuals who seemed to transcend normal human limitations. People who displayed extraordinary intuition, telepathic abilities, or even the ability to influence physical reality through thought alone. While these stories have often been dismissed as myths, modern research is beginning to suggest that such phenomena might not be mere superstition. In fact, they may be glimpses into a deeper reality, one where the boundaries between mind and matter are far more fluid than we ever imagined. One of the most compelling explorations of this idea comes from Dean Radin, a leading researcher in the field of consciousness studies. In his book Entangled Minds, Radin presents decades of experimental evidence suggesting that human consciousness is not confined to the brain. His studies on telepathy, precognition, and psychokinesis challenge conventional scientific assumptions, indicating that the mind may indeed have the ability to extend beyond the body and interact with the external world in ways that defy classical physics. Radin is not alone in his findings. Rupert Sheldrake, a biologist and philosopher, has proposed the theory of morphic resonance, which suggests that all living organisms are connected through invisible fields of consciousness. According to Sheldrake, these fields store collective memories and shape behaviors, not just in individuals, but across entire species. This could explain how flocks of birds move in perfect synchrony, or how new skills and ideas seem to spontaneously emerge across the world at the same time. If Sheldrake's theory is correct, it means that our thoughts, emotions, and even intentions may be influencing reality in ways we do not yet fully understand. Beyond individual experiments, entire institutions have been dedicated to researching the hidden capacities of the human mind. The Institute of Noetic Sciences, IONS, founded by astronaut Edgar Mitchell, has conducted extensive studies on the nature of consciousness and its relationship to the physical world. Their research explores everything from the effects of meditation on the nervous system to the potential for human intention to alter physical systems. Similarly, the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research (PEAR) laboratory spent decades investigating whether human consciousness could influence random number generators, with results that consistently defied statistical expectations. But what do these findings mean for the future of humanity? If consciousness is indeed a fundamental force in the universe, one that is not limited by space, time, or even the physical body, then our potential may be far greater than we have been led to believe. What if our thoughts do not merely reside within our skulls, but ripple out into the cosmos? What if the boundaries we experience between ourselves and others, between mind and matter, are illusions we have yet to overcome? The renowned physicist John Wheeler once posed a question that forces us to reconsider everything. Does the universe exist if we're not looking? This question is not just philosophical, it is scientific. If consciousness plays a role in shaping reality, then reality itself may be far more malleable than we ever thought. What, then, are the implications for human evolution? Could we be on the verge of unlocking abilities that have remained dormant within us for millennia? Could the realization of our quantum nature allow us to reshape our destiny, not just as individuals but as an entire species? If the answer is yes, then the final question we must ask is perhaps the most profound of all. What is our role as conscious observers in the grand design of the universe? Are we merely passive spectators? Or are we active participants in the creation of reality itself? As we now turn to the conclusion, we must confront the possibility that the way we perceive the world is not just a reflection of reality, but a force that actively shapes it. The deeper we explore the mysteries of consciousness, the more we are confronted with a startling realization. Our minds may not simply exist within the universe. They may be shaping it in ways we barely understand. If quantum mechanics has taught us anything, it is that reality is not fixed, not objective in the way classical physics once assumed. Instead, it appears to respond to observation itself. This idea is not speculation. The famous double-slit experiment demonstrated that the behavior of quantum particles changes depending on whether or not they are being observed. When unobserved, particles exist in a state of probability, spread out in a wave-like pattern. But the moment they are measured, they choose a definite state. This phenomenon, known as the observer effect, suggests that consciousness itself plays an active role in determining reality. But what does this mean for us? If observation influences the fundamental structure of reality, then what role do we, as conscious beings, truly play in the cosmos? Are we merely passive witnesses to a world unfolding around us? Or are we participants in a grand, cosmic act of creation? Philosopher David Chalmers, one of the foremost thinkers on the nature of consciousness, has suggested that understanding the mind may be the missing key to solving the deepest mysteries of the universe. If consciousness is fundamental, as many physicists and philosophers now suggest, then our role as observers is not just incidental. It may be essential to the very existence of reality itself. And if this is true, then every thought we have, every moment of awareness, carries significance beyond what we have ever imagined. If consciousness and quantum mechanics are deeply intertwined, then it is possible, perhaps even likely, that our perceptions do not merely reflect reality but actively shape it. So what does this mean for you right now as you listen to these words? It means that the way you see the world, the thoughts you hold, the intentions you set, these may have an impact beyond your own mind. The boundaries between self and universe may be illusions, and the act of observing may be far more powerful than we have ever realized. The next time you look at the stars, consider this: the atoms that make up your body were once forged in the hearts of ancient suns. The consciousness that you experience right now may be connected to something far greater than the limits of your skull. And the very act of looking, of perceiving, may be entwined with the deepest mechanics of reality itself. So the question remains, not just for science, but for every one of us. If our minds are entangled with the universe, then what reality are we creating?